Welcome back to this reading vlog of The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Bakker. Today I'm talking about chapter 16. We're still on Momin. We have all of the threads coming together continuously. Well, they're already here so far. Now they're just talking to each other, these different threads. We start off when we have Akamian, and he and Kellis are having a chat by the fire, I believe. And this first line, this observation from Akamian, it made me laugh. And it's when he says, Anasurimbur. Now there was a name. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's Scott Bakker, who he's kind of poking fun at himself, because I would say out of all of the fantasy novels I've ever read, the naming conventions in this, they're probably the most difficult to pronounce, at least all of the ones that have come to mind. But the jokes continue. The jokes continue. So Kellis says, but I've always believed that one must ride another man's horse for a day before criticizing. And then Akamian responds with, to better understand him? No, the man replied with an eye-twinkling shrug. That's interesting, an eye-twinkling shrug. Because then you're a day away and you have his horse. Oh, man. Kellis is cracking jokes now. I like it. I like it. And I know I criticized Kellis last time, and I'm still criticizing him as a character because he feels so empty. He feels so generic. And for someone who is... what I liked at the beginning anyway was how... And one of you viewers out there corrected me on it. He was very robotic at the prologue, right? And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? This guy doesn't speak normally. And then we learn that it was 2,000 years before he shows up, meaning he's kind of lived in this place, right, amongst books and all these people for 2,000 years, I guess, before he set out. And yeah, so he's kind of inhuman to a degree. So I don't know that I find him interesting as a character. I do appreciate, though, that Bakker is injecting some humor into this. It feels purposeful in a sense that he's acting in such a way that someone of his background, at least what I know so far, would act. But they continued this conversation. And more than anything, though, it was what the man said that stirred Akamian to awe. And why have you joined this holy war? Akamian asked, trying to convince himself. He still thought the man's answer to Proyas fraudulent. You're referring to the dreams, Kellis replied. I suppose I am. So life has been an endless reverie for me before the dreams, he explained. Itself a dream, perhaps. The dream you ask about, the dream of the Holy War, was a dream that awakens, italicized, emphasized. A dream that makes a dream of one's prior life. What does one do when he has such dreams, he asked. Go back to sleep. Indeed, so... Kellis is basically saying that he has been awakened. He can't turn a blind eye any longer. And I've noticed that a lot in this book, is that Bakker is trying to say things that are not overly complex or deep, but he's communicating them in a very deep or poetic way. So on one hand, I appreciate the fact that these concepts aren't difficult to describe. But on the other hand, they're not really that new, right? They're not hitting me like a revelation of any kind. And maybe that's not his intention. I have no idea. But the conversation brings us next to Surway. When Akamian asked, do you love her? And Kellis smiled ruefully. Yes, I need her. She worships you, you know. I can tell by the way she watches you. For some reason, she makes more of me than I am. Others do this as well. Here you possess privileged knowledge. This is Kellis talking to Akamian. And yet no one believes you, while I possess nothing, and everyone insists that I have privileged knowledge. Another semantic game in a way. Again, he's not saying anything that's incredibly enlightening, right? But he is presenting it in kind of an opaque way. Which to me, what he's saying here is giving me more, yes, Jesus Christ vibes. Which makes me wonder, this series, or this novel that I'm reading anyway so far, the setting is heavily inspired by... the Bible, right? And clearly Kellis is a godlike figure in this, a Jesus figure, you might say. I mean, we literally have Immaculate Conception with Sareway. I'm not sure what Bakker's religious affiliations, if he has any, are, but considering how dark this story is, I'm kind of assuming that he's creating like a godlike or Jesus-like figure out of Kellis only to subvert our expectations, because I've heard that He's kind of an anti-hero of sorts. So that gets me to believe that in addition to the fact that this book or this series is inspired by the Bible, or at least, there's nods to it, this apocalypse, which again, there's obviously one in the Bible as well, it's not going to go quite the same way. I feel like my prediction is that Kellis is going to be the one to bring everything down or not be the beacon of hope, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see though. This is extremely early, but the biblical nature is heavy in this book. It's exceptionally heavy. And part of me, I don't know. I like it when, fiction nods to certain things, but when it's a pretty tight blueprint. I mean, granted, the names are different, the places are different, but this thing just screams Bible at me. And I've never been a huge fan of that, but again, it's still extremely early in this first volume. But the strange thing that happens next is Kellis asks Achamian to mentor him. Right? So this is kind of a strange twist of events. And of course, the Achamian agrees because, as noted here, one of my seed will return, says Swatha, and Anasurimbur will return at the end of the world. A sign not of God's divine sanction of the holy war, as Proyas assumed, but of the no God's imminent return, ... the end of the world. So you can see that Achamian's kind of wrapped up in this prophecy. He's clearly having these crazy dreams. And so he believes that this is his time, right? I guess to mentor this man. But he glanced at the names scattered across the parchment, pausing at Mathanet. So this is another, I'll show you on the screen here. This is another situation where Achamian is actually helping us. Well, I should say Bakker is helping us kind of put all of these factions in play. And I really love this, this concept because it's sort of like it's in the novel, but it's outside the novel. Does that make sense? Because it feels like kind of an appendix or something like that, where, hey, here are, which in fact there is an appendix in this book. Here are the factions, here's what they do, but it's cooler this way because we're getting it through the lens of a character, right? Because I think that's incredibly important with fiction, right? I'm not reading fiction to read history books, guys. Okay, so I really like what Bakker's doing with that. And then we meet with Nair briefly. He has some words with, who did he have words with? Proyas. Anyway, they start talking shit to each other. And then we do get this Sylvendi belief, right? Which is kind of cool. This is how we know that when it's night, it is truly day, and that when it's day, it is truly night. This is how we know, Neyu, that the world is a lie. For Sylvendi, the stars were a reminder. Only the people were true. So again, it's cool, but it's like, it's not saying a lot, but it's saying it poetically. Again, I'm not sure if Bakker is trying to be profound with his musings in this, or if he's just trying to wrap them around the language, I guess, or the perception of the people here. But I forgot to mention, this is when Sylvendi children were told that the sky was a yaksh, and possibly vast and pricked by innumerable holes, which I believe, is it the Native Americans that believe? Anyway, I've heard that before, right? I heard that. That's, again, borrowing from history. That essentially we have this big sheet over the sky blocking the sun, and then pinpricks in it are the stars. And then Nair and Kellis have some words together. 30 years, Kellis called from behind. Moengus has dwelt among these men for 30 years. He'll have great power, more than either of us could hope to overcome. I need more than sorcery, Nair. I need a nation, a nation. So he needs a nation to fight his father. Sounds like he's amassing an army, or he's planning on amassing an army. But then we have Zarius, and he's having a chat as well here. So Proyas has apparently found a Sylvendi who's warred against the heathen before, inflicted a crushing defeat upon them actually. It is now proposed to Mathanet that he'll be a suitable replacement for Comphis. Okay, that's interesting. We haven't talked to Comphis in a while anyway, have we? And then Eli shows up, right? Remember old Eli? And he blames Achamian. He thinks he's an informant, right? I believe so. Sorry, it's been a few days since I read this chapter. Oh, but this was a really cool description. This is with Eokas, I believe. He's talking to Elazarus, who they call Eli. Like dark arthritic worms, veins branched across his features. One could even see the dark in the center of his red eyes when he closed his lids. His fingernails were waxy black from bruising. Yeah, cool description with that guy. But it's just more Holy War talk. That's pretty much it. We end with, first we crush the Sisharum, Eokas. In the meantime, make certain that Drusus Achamian is watched. And that's pretty much it. So some cool some cool talking scenes, I guess. I really like the Achamian-Kellis dynamic. I appreciate the fact that Kellis is actually showing he's not completely a robot. Or is he just like a Mark Zuckerberg character where he's trying to be human, right? He's trying his best to be human. even though he sounds robotic. But it looks like I have 3 chapters left to finish this book. I know this book's taking me far too long to read. I shouldn't read so many books at the same time. This will be going on 2 months now. So I need to wrap this up quickly, but thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. Always appreciate the comments and the discussion down below. And I will see you in the next one.